next guest is going to be Ted Topouzis from Topouzis Associates. Ted is a real estate attorney. We're going to dive in today to something that we're seeing more and more commonly pop up, as advisors, what we're seeing, and that's use and occupancy agreements. I know we had kind of met and talked a little bit about this before, but why don't you give everybody a little bit of insight as to what that is, first of all?
Yep, happy to. So many times when properties are sold and purchased, there's a little flexibility that needs to be worked into the process. And the closing date is kind of an arbitrary date that's picked, let's say 30 to 45 days out, sometimes longer, sometimes less. But lots of times, especially in recent times, with the lack of inventory, the lack of the next step being readily available, or visible from when the contract was signed on your purchase or on your sale, the other party might not have their next step in place. So what you see is these agreements that are contemplated or written even sometimes into your purchase and sales agreement that the seller might need a little extra time to vacate the property, or the buyer might need a little more time, might need to have access to the property before the closing to allow for things to be moved in. Many times you see this where a seller will say, "Hey, look, I need a couple more days to get to before I can, move all my belongings into my new place, or arrange for a moving company or whatever the case may be." And so, certain allowances are made between the parties, and that's really what the use and occupancy is. It's not a lease. It's just an agreement between the parties to say, I'm willing to give you the extra time. Usually, these use and occupancy agreements are for so the use and occupancy fee would be like a per diem rental, sort of. I mean, nobody wants to use the term rental because that implies a landlord-tenant relationship, which is not meant to imply. It's just meant to give an agreement so that this flexibility could be provided. And it can be at a per diem basis. I recommend, when I represent somebody on something like this, especially as a buyer, I definitely recommend that money be pulled to the side, from the seller's proceeds to allow for, like a damage deposit. So I know these terms are kind of loosely woven in, to make it sound like it's a lease, but it's really not. It's just it's an accommodation.